My husband, 44, male, told me he wished I, 37, female, was dead instead of his first wife. I'm devastated. My husband Nick was married to his first wife, Vanessa, for 5 years, and they had two amazing kids, Luke, 15, and Lila, 13, female. Sadly, Vanessa died in an accident 11 years ago when the kids were very young. I started dating Nick 80 years ago, and we started off very slowly for obvious reasons. Nick has always been a little more distant than anyone I'd ever been with. But he and the kids lost Vanessa so young that I understood it. After 3 years of dating, Nick asked me to marry him and I moved in. I've always had a really great relationship with Luke and Leela, and they were happy for me to marry their dad. I had wanted an actual wedding, nothing big, but Nick really didn't want one, so we got married at a courthouse with just Luke and Leela present. We had a really fast engagement, but it worked for all of us. I have loved being Luke and Leela's stepmom and officially adopted them after I found out I was pregnant with our son, Cassie, 2, male. The kids have been so great with Cassie and help out so much. Nick was wonderful during the pregnancy and had always been a really loving dad and husband. But Nick has been pulling away a lot of the last few months. Has been even more distant than usual and working late nights and going away with friends almost every weekend. I've tried talking to him, but he's been impatient with both me and the kids. I found out I was pregnant in June, and I'm now 21 weeks pregnant with a girl. The kids are excited to have a little sister, but Nick just seems so indifferent to everything and everyone. He's been missing soccer games, Leela's birthday, doctor's appointments, etc. Cassie is too young to notice, but Luke and Leela are so hurt by their dad's absence. These kids are so good, and they lost their mom so young, and I'm infuriated that Nick is ignoring the kids like this. Last week, I finally sat Nick down and told him that he needs to stop disappearing and be more present in our lives. We're going to have another child soon, and before we know it, Luke and Leela will be grown up and going to college. After an hour of arguing, he screamed at me that he wished Vanessa was still alive and that I had switched places with her and died instead. He also threw in some awful comments that I need to stop pretending I am Luke and Leela's real mom, and that I'm only half the mom Vanessa was. The final straw was him saying that he never even wanted any kids with me, but did it so I'd keep busy and leave him alone. I'm so being hurt right now. I know I'm just a second choice, but I've always tried to honor Vanessa and tell Luke and Leela how lucky they were to have her as their mom. I love all of our kids more than anything, and I'm just so heartbroken. Nick barely pays attention to Cassie now and doesn't even acknowledge the pregnancy. He somewhat apologized this weekend and took all 3 kids to lunch, but he won't even look me in the eye. It seems like he wants to talk, but he doesn't say anything, and I'm too upset to even be near him. I'm not sure where to go from here. Honestly, I can't even be around Nick right now, and if there weren't any kids involved, I'd leave and never look back. I'm not sure if he's cheating or the thought of a 4th child is stressing him out, but I'm devastated and not sure how or why I should save this marriage. Besides doing it for the kids, any advice is desperately needed right now. Second story. Wife broke down crying at dinner table over ex-boyfriend. Me 42 male, wife 42 female. We have been married for almost a year, together for 3. Scenario: having dinner, eating and drinking wine. Just one glass of wine, not getting drunk. Her daughter, 12, asked about her ex-boyfriend, as in what happened, why they broke up, more than 4 years ago, and my wife breaks down at the table, full on crying, gets up, and leaves the table. We are just stuck in slow motion at the table. Her daughter says, thought she would have been over that by now, and I say the same. We talk about it privately, and she says that she wasn't hurt by him and his betrayal. He left her for another woman, but 4 years ago, and I am now married to her. She says her episode was a result of the pain from the betrayal, not from the feelings for him. I'm having a hard time with this, and it seems like there are some leftover feelings for him she isn't telling me about. I'm feeling like maybe I'll never live up to what they had together. Her daughter isn't biologically related to the ex-boyfriend. The energy in our house is very heavy. Help. Trying to get past it. Update. Just for clarity, he didn't cheat on her. He did betray her and then leave her for a good friend of hers. So yeah, a bad situation. They were living together for 5 years. I am grateful for all those who have written in and given their thoughts. It helps a lot. Thank you. I will have a conversation with her about it, and as moving past it. I believe her when she says she doesn't have feelings any longer for him. It was just hard last night when my head was spinning from that episode. So hard to see it that way.
When I found out my then fiancé was cheating on me, I threw up. I still have a very visceral reaction when I think about that time, now almost 9 years later. I am in a wonderful relationship now and have not a shred of positive emotion towards my ex. But the feelings were still very intense and still reverberate sometimes. This is exactly it. In my situation, it cut my self-confidence down so much. I felt like I obviously wasn't enough when I was devoted to him. I gave up everything in my life to be with him, and then was left high and dry. Looking back, I was young and stupid. It was a very unhealthy relationship, and I allowed him to completely control my life. It was such a punch in the gut. It took me over a year to start feeling better. I have been married now for almost 6 years and have 2 awesome kids. My husband is the most kind and loving man I have ever met. He has never done anything but support me. I love him with my whole heart and trust him with my life. But my self-confidence still suffers to this day. Sometimes it is crippling. My husband has never called me anything but gorgeous, but I still have feelings every now and again about not being enough. It had nothing to do with her love for him or you. It's the pain of rejection and betrayal that hurts so very much. This. I imagine she wasn't expecting to be ambushed by a probing question about her ex during a relaxing family dinner, not saying this was the daughter's intent, but I imagine that's how it felt. Sometimes the humiliation of a particularly nasty breakup long outlasts any lingering romantic feelings for the ex in question. If her chosen coping mechanism at the time was just don't think about it, being asked a direct question about the breakup probably brought a lot of pain to the surface very quickly. Same. Years later, my ex and I are friendly, and while I like him platonically, I no longer love him. But thinking about the pain and despair I survived after his betrayal will still get me crying. The scared, lonely nights while I held my crying child who wanted her daddy home. The pets who would wait by the door for him to walk in after work. The absolute terror of not knowing if I'd be able to pay rent without him, and the soul-deep fury that he'd risk our home for an ex he hadn't seen in years. That stuff stays with you for a very long time. And it's hard to process because every time you do, you get dismissed as still being in love with your ex. Like, no. It's not about him. It's about my pain. Same. I never ever think about my ex, who cheated on me with at least 3 different women, and have no feelings for him but wish him well, etc. But if I were to be reminded out of the blue of some of the shit he put me through, especially after a glass of wine or 2, and maybe also if I were tired, I might have to cry a bit. I got myself into therapy to work through some of this, but if I hadn't, these feelings might be even more pronounced. Let me start out by saying that I am happily married and have been married for over 2 decades. But I am still hurt by an ex-girlfriend that cheated on me many years ago. We were the couple everyone looked to. We went everywhere together. I was invited to all her family get-togethers. She was smart and very attracted to me. She couldn't keep her hands off of me when we were together. I thought, had a great relationship. I worked some nights during the week but always asked off for a weekend night to take her out. On the nights I was working, she was hooking up with another guy. He never took her out on dates. He just went to her house to hook up. She did this for a year before I found out. I was the safe, stable guy with a job while he was the guy who was getting her on the side. He knew all about our relationship. All of her family knew and never told me. Even today, 30 years later, I sometimes think of her betrayal and how I looked like such a fool to so many people. How I was used and taken advantage. I have no good feelings for her, but I am still bothered how she could use me so easily. Now I wouldn't break down over it, but I have talked about it over the years and used it as a teachable moment with my kids.